Hello, everyone. So today, I'm going to be talking about immigration, particularly as relates to the last election cycle. It was a very important issue, particularly as relates to illegal immigration and the demographic change that resulted from that over the past few decades. The Republicans got into office there. They were the ones who have been elected to kind of dictate the policy. And in recent weeks, we've seen, reporting in the New York Times, Washington Post, things going on at the border. El Paso, Texas, concentration camp is the word that's been used to describe a lot of the migrant children being placed in those camps, things like that. Very reminiscent of very important historical events. We're talking about Japanese internment in World War II era situation there. So you might ask, how did we get here? How did we end up in this situation? So I took a look at a lot of the kind of scholarly academic literature on the subject, and the consensus, as far as I can tell, is that the Hart Celler Act of 1965 was the kind of at least an important aspect of how we've ended up in this place in terms of immigration, particularly on two major fronts. Talk about demographic change and illegal immigration, and how those two things are interrelated with one another, specifically in terms of from where are immigrants coming, how many are coming, and exactly how they're getting here. Work programs and things like that, or illegally, things like that. So to start with, in terms of how exactly the Hart Celler Act has affected immigration, we want to talk about the 1924 Immigration Act, and particularly the national origins quota system that was in place then, that emphasized Northern and Western European immigration. Eastern European immigration, Southern European was de-emphasized but still allowed. Asian immigration was completely outlawed essentially, and so was black immigration, things like that. They say maybe a few exceptional circumstances, things like that. So between then and 1965, not a whole lot changed. But then in 1965, Lyndon Johnson decided to try and make some changes in terms of a lot of social reforms, things like that. So he eliminated with the Hart Celler Act, he eliminated the quota system. But a lot of the Southern Democrats and the conservatives got some victories too. So they wanted family-based immigration and family reunification-based immigration, and also they wanted to make sure that the temporary worker system was eliminated, and also that there was a cap on Western Hemisphere immigration. So Latin America coming to the United States, they wanted to, for the first time in American history, at least modern American history, they wanted a cap on that, the reason for a lot of these things on both sides of the aisle was that they didn't think that there was going to be a significant change in migration patterns, but as it turns out, there was a significant change. Fewer Northern Europeans and Western Europeans come to the country, and more Latin Americans come to the country. So because of that, the family reunification aspect ended up having more Asian folks and more Latin American folks coming to the country, and fewer whites, fewer Northern European coming to the country. So that was a significant demographic change that wasn't quite supposed to happen. At least it wasn't predicted by any of even the conservatives or the left, guys like Lyndon Johnson. They weren't really anticipating that big demographic change. They just wanted to really eliminate some of the racial inadequacies, things like that. But on top of that, we still have lots of demand for workers, migrant workers, things like that. So illegal immigration, ends up being a factor because, it's more difficult to get a work visa because they eliminated the migrant workers program there. So it's more difficult to get into the country legally to work, even though there's still, the demand that's happening there. So that's how we ended up where we see today, with lots of uncertainty, discord, things like that. Lots of trouble going on at the southern border, and part of the reason why I wanted to kind of emphasize the foot aspect here, the shoes. You got the boots here, some of the small shoes here, because this has become a symbol of the struggle in terms of the protests, a lot of things like that. Shoes representing the people, the children who've been lost, and also the workers, all the people, of all different ages who have been affected by the situation. So hopefully, in the near future, immigration reform will become something that will get taken care of, as Lyndon Johnson tried to do in 1965.